About the signature page on the Fulton County contract, you do not need to get your counselor signature, because what you do need to do is get your parent signature and your signatures all throughout. And in the Naviance task directions, I tell you which pages you need to do. And from there, after you get all the signatures, you're going to scan it and upload it to your Naviance account. Okay. But you don't need to get your counselor signature because we have to review it anyway. We do that after March 31st deadline.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, let me see who was next. Okay, Shreya, did that answer all your questions? If so, get rid of your hand.
Yes, I'm
okay.
trying. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Tong, Ted Tong, you're next.
Hi, so I know it says in the Naviance you're supposed to do like apply to college and then you get your funding from Georgia Futures. But on the college site it says that in order for me to pick a schedule and all that kind of stuff, I need to apply for funding and then the hold will be lifted so I could apply. So
okay, so what it comes down to is that the funding is kind of twofold. The funding goes to the college, but it also comes to your high school counselor. We have access to the same account. So what I would recommend you do is apply to the college and then do the high school parts. Let me pull up a Naviance account right now and look at it so that I can kind of speak to the specifics of it. But okay, Ted, I'm going to pull yours up for an example just for me. But in your tasks that you have, it looks like you've already done the contract, okay? And then the next step was making sure you apply to the college. You want to make sure you get your application submitted to the college. You don't have to have all parts of the application, but you can go ahead and submit the actual application to the college. You also need to do the dual enrollment funding. The funding is done through Georgia Futures, one part of it, and then one part of it is done with me, this Google form that you fill out and tell me what specific class you want to take for fall or spring or whatever, or really just fall right now, summer and fall. But when you do the funding, it comes to the high school counselor to make an approval, and then the college is going to look at it and say, oh, my counselor, Ms. Jones, approved me to take economics at the college. They're going to then allow you to register for the class. Georgia State is very specific about this. They will not allow a student to register for a class unless your high school counselor has approved the class. So that's an important part. So you can kind of do it all simultaneously. You can go ahead and do the Georgia Futures application and then apply to the college. It really doesn't matter about the order. It's more about just getting it done. Does that make sense, Ted?
Yeah, so you talk about the application and the scheduling of classes like completely differently. So like I'm on the website right now and how would you apply?
Okay, so the application to the college, you're actually applying to get admitted to the college. Which college were you looking at?
Georgia State.
Okay, so for Georgia State, you're applying to become a Georgia State University student. Until they make a decision about your application and whether or not you're admitted to the college, you can't register for a college class. And that will have to wait until they make a decision about your application.
So essentially, are you saying that I'm going to be registering as an undergrad, or?
You're registering as a non-degree student.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that's completely separate. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so first you have to do all the application and materials like you're applying as a college student. And then later, after they've accepted you, then they'll say, okay, you've been admitted to Georgia State University. Now here's your next steps. And Georgia State will give you a whole nother host of things that you're going to have to do, like upload immunization records, possible verification of residency, You might have to submit a copy of your driver's license. Like things like this, they may require you to submit, and then eventually you then have to do some things to get rid of holds on your account. Like they're gonna check your emergency contact. They're gonna make sure that you have completed the funding application. Like all of these things have to happen before you ever get to actually pick a class.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Serene?
Hi, yes. My question is, just double checking, the contract, the dual enrollment contract is not set in stone, so I could make changes to it even after having met with my counselor already?
Yes, because with dual enrollment, we have to be flexible because it may be that you really want to take a certain class, and then guess what? The fall schedule rolls out from the college and they're not offering it. So then we have to go back to square one and decide what you might take. The general rule is that there's certain classes that they pretty much offer every semester, like a US history, your Englishes, your economics, a psychology, a sociology, a human communications. Like there's certain classes that are definitely going to be offered, but there's always, there might be a hiccup where the high school schedule, the classes that you're taking at the high school, and this is going to get really complicated here when I say this, but you have a high school schedule and then you're also trying to fit in these college classes. And it might be that you really wanted to take your college class in the morning and do it that way. But the high school schedule didn't allow for that because by the time the master schedules created over the summer, it might be that that one class that you really wanted to take is only offered first and second period. Well, and it might conflict with what you were thinking you were going to do at the college. Then we've got to make some choices. You know, so there's a lot of flexibility that has to be involved with dual enrollment and some patience. And typically we do a pretty good job in late summer, the counselors do. We set up some dual enrollment specific scheduling help sessions after we get back. So counselors usually roll back into the office sometime in mid-July. We have to get our new students squared away. And then after that, I usually send out an email to students saying, hey, if you have actually registered for a dual enrollment class, sign up for a time to meet with your counselor so we can work out your high school schedule too. So we make sure that everything lines up the way it should. That only can happen if you've actually registered for a class. Does that make sense, Serene?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Eva?
Yeah, I was just wondering, which steps of like the dual enrollment like application process would be different if we wanted to do like the Auburn First?
Okay.
Dual enrollment?
That's a great question, Eva. So Auburn First is a totally different program because, well, one, there's certain classes that aren't offered. So for example, Auburn is not offering a US history, and that's a popular class. It's also, you have to pay the application fee. You have to pay for the class. You have to pay for your books. You have to pay for any student fees. Everything is a pay option. Whereas with dual enrollment through Gwinnett Tech or Georgia State, almost everything is paid. So that's the biggest thing. If you go into your Naviance tasks and go to the Apply to College, the step 3 for dual enrollment, and you look at the details for all of those things, I've tried to list out everything that's required. And for Auburn, they did a voiceover PowerPoint. It's available in the step 3 of the dual enrollment apply to college step in Naviance. And I also attached the overview and the information packet that you have to have in order to start that process with Auburn, because there's a specific portal you have to go in to apply. You have to have your counselor do a verification form for you. So that process is a little bit separate, but because your counselor still needs to keep track that you're going to do dual enrollment and there is a lot of overlap, you still have to do the Fulton County contract for me. You would not have to do any funding stuff because you're going to pay for it on your own. The real benefit of Auburn's First program is that if you are a 10th grader right now and you were going to try and do Auburn first for 11th grade year for next year, if you do at least 2 of the dual enrollment classes through Auburn and you get a B or higher, then it's an automatic admission if you want to go there following high school. This does not apply for rising seniors because they don't have the program set up to where you can get the 2 classes completed in time. So this is a kind of a rolling kind of program where it will be, you know, the upcoming juniors that have the opportunity and beyond, but our rising seniors won't have that admission guarantee for Auburn. Does that make sense, Eva?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you haven't done the PowerPoint for Auburn, that was on the Apply to College, the Step 3 task. It's in there along with their information packet. It was also in that Step 3 task. So look there for the Auburn information. Okay. Benita Napa, you had a question?
Hi, Ms. Wilson. Yes, you mentioned about GA Futures funding application, and also you mentioned about dual enrollment funding. Are both the same, or are they 2 different things?
Okay, there's 2 steps to funding. The first step is that students have to do a once-a-year application to Georgia Futures because ultimately Georgia Student Finance Commission, who is kind of the overarching body for Georgia Futures, they handle the dual enrollment funding. Everything has to go through them. So, but it is a little confusing because the high school and the college, once the student does their funding application, we both have access to the same form. The high school and the college does. Okay, so that's the first thing with the funding. The second thing is to make it easier on the counselor, the high school counselor, I've set up Google Forms for each of the semesters. So as of right now, the summer forms and the fall forms are available for Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State. So you would click on the Google Form link for fall, and there's a drop-down menu to tell your counselor what specific class you plan to take, or if you're going to take multiple classes, you also need to tell your counselor, I'm going to take Psych 1101 and I'm going to take English 1101 in the fall. And so that way your counselor is funding the exact class that you're trying to register for. So that's the second step. This one step is the Georgia Futures, and the second step is the Google form for your counselor. And it just makes the funding process a lot easier because then we know exactly when you requested funding. Because even though a student lists something on their contract, that's done in February or March. And by the time you're trying to register in May, you might have totally changed your mind about what class you were specifically going to take. So as long as we're meeting graduation requirements and we're doing the important stuff, then I think we're all in good shape. Does that make sense, Ms. Napa?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I've also had some students, while I'm at it, that want to do colleges that are not Gwinnett Tech or Georgia State. They might want to do Kennesaw for dual enrollment. That's totally fine too, but all the steps still apply, and I still have to fund a class, and I don't have, we have so few students that do that option that it doesn't always make sense. So, if that's the case, you need to let your counselor know the specific class you intend to take so that they can fund it. For example, in the email that I sent out today to students, that included information from Georgia State, it specifically told me, like, if you're taking a summer class at Georgia State, your counselor has to fund it by Friday. So go ahead and tell us what you plan to do. Go ahead and do the funding application, even if you haven't finished the application to the college. And the reason why is because if you're late getting things turned in to your counselor, then we're delayed on doing the approval. And then when Georgia State is doing all their checks for what you're taking, they're now delayed on doing an approval because it wasn't in the system. And then it can take up to 10 or 15 days for them to do approval. And by that point, you may have missed the registration deadline for summer. So that's why I try to send out the information with all the dates so that everybody knows and there's no surprises as to when things are due. Now, the Fulton County deadline, again, is until March 31st. And so if you wait, it's okay if you wait, but, you know, ultimately other things may be delayed. You may be delayed getting registered. You may be delayed getting your application approved from the college. You may be delayed on getting that transcript reviewed or whatever it might be. So you have time to get stuff done, but you know, it's the quicker you can get through the process, the better. One of the biggest things, you know, students get confused about is the deadlines, I think. And all I can say is, you know, the county has this deadline of March 31st. The biggest things you have to get done by March 31st, the application to the college, the Fulton County dual enrollment contract, your funding app, those are the big things. All the supplemental documents, test scores, transcripts, all of that can come later. But again, the longer you wait to get those materials in, or get the testing done or whatever, then they can't make a decision about your application. So it's just a matter of paperwork at that point. Do we have some more questions? Mahina, go ahead.
If you're planning to do U.S. history dual enrollment, either through Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech over the summer, and you want to like travel outside the country, is there any like required in-person classes or tests?
Okay, there's not. I think the biggest thing is whether or not, I hate to say it, but it's more about the server, whether or not you will still have access to the class if you're out of the country, because I know I had some students that, because of COVID over, you know, the winter break or whatever, they got stuck in a different country and couldn't get back or whatever. And it ends up where it's possible you run into some hiccups with the computer aspect of logging into a class or being able to do something electronically, that if you were in the US, you wouldn't have those problems. Mahina, does that answer your question?
Yes, and I have another one.
Yeah, go for it.
If you're planning to do on-level U.S. history, is there like an EOC for that?
There's no EOC for US history, but there is an EOC that's required of all students for American literature. So if a student does American Lit through the college, which is English 2130, they do have to do the end of course test with us, and it would count 20% of the grade that goes on the high school transcript.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That was a good question. Thanks, Mahina. Do we have any other questions that I can answer? Let me see who's still raising their hand. Rachel?
Hi, thank you so much. I really appreciate this session. It's been
Okay.
very helpful to hear the different questions. But I did have, so we have not, the SAT, we're scheduled to take the SAT, or my daughter's scheduled to take the SAT on the 12th of March.
Okay.
Is that going to be too late to apply? I mean, because I assume they have to have that for the college admissions,
They
right?
have
So
to have it. Okay, so they have to have it to make a decision about the application. But like I said, like you can have things go in, like I've got some kids that aren't going to take it until May. It's okay, but it's just going to get a delayed response. Like you're not going to get admitted as fast. You're not going to maybe get registered as quickly as maybe some other students. And some classes may be filled. I think the March is better than a May, but you know, it's just a delaying on actually getting the acceptance and getting all the next steps done. Does that make sense?
yes, no, it does. That's helpful. And then
I mean, it's definitely not
far
one of those, it's not one of those things that you have to have it done by March 31st. That's not one of the pieces that has to be done by March 31st. But does it make it easier on the process if you have it done quicker? Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that makes complete sense. And then one final question is about how long does it take for the colleges to respond to accept your application?
Well, and this is the thing. Gwinnett Tech is really efficient with paperwork. They're really efficient with getting things in and out and responding to things quickly. Georgia State, I love them. I used to work for them, but they are not as efficient. And I think it's because of their numbers. Like they are, dual enrollment. I mean, basically everybody in North Fulton is trying to do dual enrollment, and they have like 3 staff members. So it can take, and they say this outright, it can take them up to 21 business days to process a document. So if you wait to get things done and it takes 3 full weeks for them to respond to something, that's where the delay. And I really emphasize that students need to be in charge of managing their portal and checking their admissions portal to see if, like, did the transcript come in? Did they get my test scores? Do they have my application? Like those main parts, so that if you feel like it's been too long that they haven't made a decision, you're on top of it and can ask the questions to the admissions office.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And then Auburn's brand new, so I have no idea how Auburn's going to be. I mean, I think it's a pretty new program, and they have a designated staff for the Fulton County operation. So I think that will be really, really good. And like Mr. Jacobs said in the chat, I mean, it sounds like his daughter got an acceptance within like 2 weeks. Gwinnett Tech is super fast, super efficient, as long as you have all your stuff in.
How?
Okay.
What is the Kennesaw? The Kennesaw State?
I have, in all my years, I have yet to have a kid do Kennesaw, but this year I've had several students ask about it, and it's totally fine. But they were a little delayed in responding to my email last week. I hope that's not an indication as to how it's going to be. But yeah, I mean, I think time will tell to see how fast they can process stuff.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Archana Tiku. I don't know if I said that right, but go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, so my son is planning to take dual enrollment econ over the summer. So what is the subject ID, the course ID for econ? And also I want to know the course ID for GOV, dual enrollment GOV as well. Okay,
so there's a couple of things. The course title is going to be like economics or econ 2105, econ 2106. I think there's also an econ 2100, like a global econ. But I encourage everybody to go to the Georgia Futures directory, go to Georgia Futures, go to the dual enrollment information, and there's a course directory. You can look up the college and then choose the subject area, and the classes are listed, and it gives you all that information.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're welcome. Did you have another question?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Naren, did you have a question?
Yeah, following up on someone else's question, do all classes have EOCs, or is it just certain classes?
The EOCs that still exist in Fulton County or really in the state are Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History, and American Lit. American Lit is the only one, if you're a dual enrollment student, American Lit's the only one that you would have to do. Now, if you're taking U.S. History here on campus, U.S. History you're going to have to take the EOC if you're taking like the on-level U.S. History in the classroom. But if you do it through dual enrollment, you do not have to do the EOC. But for American Literature, you do. Everybody would have already done Algebra 1, and everybody would have done Biology by now, because those are 9th grade classes, and 9th graders aren't allowed to do dual enrollment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Vanitha, did you have another question?
Yes, I just have one more question. You mentioned about the high school schedule, and if there is a conflict in the schedule between dual enrollment and high school, we'll be asked to drop a course in the college. So if a course is dropped, in the previous recording, I saw something like if 2 courses are dropped.
Okay, let me explain that. Yeah, the drop is different than a withdrawal. And That's a really big distinction. So when a student drops a college class, it's before the class has started, or it's like the first day of classes, there's a drop period. That is different than a withdrawal. A withdrawal is when you've been in the class for several weeks and you decide, you know what, I don't like this professor anymore. I don't like the way this class is going. I don't think I'm going to pass this class and I want out. Then there's a process to go through a withdrawal. That's completely different than dropping a class.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Now, let me also talk a little bit about the whole scheduling piece, because I do think a lot of students, you know, they have a certain schedule in mind and they want it all to fit exactly the way they think it should go. And unfortunately, high school scheduling is a beast, sort of like dual enrollment. And it doesn't always go together the way you think it's going to go. And that's why the late summer, usually last week of July, first week of August, we will set up meeting times to meet with a student and just review, you know, what did you register for? Was it online? Was it a mini-mester? Did you sign up for a class that, you know, wasn't on the contract, or it wasn't something that I funded? You know, we need to have those last minute conversations before the semester gets rolling and just make sure that everything kind of does go together with the high school schedule. Because like right now, the schedule, we're in the process of finalizing numbers and doing hiring for teachers and how many electives are we going to have and in what areas, and all this stuff has to happen in the spring. And we all know that come August, all these students turn in schedule change forms and they want to move things around. We hopefully get all the dual enrollment students kind of squared away before that process really takes shape, because it's just, the dual enrollment adds another layer to the schedule. And so we try to do our best to manage that first. And it may be that, I mean, I've had students that are like, well, I really want to do the dual enrollment class. That's the priority. So I no longer want to take this AP class. I want to not do that. And we'll make the switch, or, you know, we'll do the switcheroo if we can. But, you know, it's all based on space available in August or late July, is, you know, what's available and what we can do at that point. And it's just flexibility is the name of the game. Okay, Mr. Jacobs, go for it.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you again. You said something really interesting there that reminded me I had a question on it. When you go to, say, the Gwinnett Tech website, it says mini-mester B or full term. What is the difference between a mini-mester? I'm older. I never had anything called a mini-mester. I had individual semesters. And so can you, what the heck are the difference, please?
So the biggest difference, I'm glad you asked this, is that because every semester I have a student or two that accidentally signs up for a mini-mester. And mini-mesters come in two forms, meaning it's well, either way, it's an accelerated pace of the class. It's a class that might go from August to October, and then another mini-mester might be October to December, meaning you're condensing the material and doing it in half the time, but for the same amount of credit. Whereas a full-term class would go August to December. So when the student is, you know, actually doing their registration, they need to pay attention, one, what campus or, you know, the format of the class that they're signing up for, because I've had students sign up for hybrid classes, like half online, half in person, and it's in the middle of the school day that they're supposed to show up to this class that they accidentally registered for in Lawrenceville or in Dunwoody or whatever it might be. So you really have to pay attention when you're registering for a college class. You really want a full-term class. If you wanted to do it online, you need to make sure it was fully online, fully distance learning. And you want to make sure that you didn't accidentally register for a class, because I do have some students that want to take a class in person, and that's totally fine to do that. It needs to mesh with our bell schedule. So, you know, that's something that the registration piece of it happens later, and a lot of times the counselors get the registrations from the college and we can scan through and be like, ooh, this is a red flag. You know, this student registered for one class at 1 p.m. Well, at 1 p.m., we're in the middle of 5th period, so, we have to keep in mind, how is it all going to fit together with the rest of the schedule? But a full term class is really what you want. So that'd be August to December, or for the spring semester, it'd be January to probably April or May. So basically the whole semester is what you're looking for, so that it's not an accelerated pace.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Mahina, did you have another question?
Yes. So, if I was going to do on-level U.S. history through Fulton Virtual, because like I didn't get into dual enrollment, is there an EOC for that course?
For an online dual enrollment class?
No, like
Or a Fulton Virtual?
A Fulton Virtual,
Yes,
but like
a Fulton Virtual U.S. history class is going to have an EOC.
So would that EOC be like once that course is over, or like in April?
Yeah, it's once the courses. I think EOCs are normally like in April or early May, usually April, so that we get the scores in time for graduation.
Even if you take it over the summer, it's not until April?
Oh yeah, you still have to do the EOC, even if you take it over the summer.
Okay, and also from other students' experiences, are you allowed to like work ahead in dual enrollment?
Depends on the professor and how they have it set up. It's not a guarantee.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, you're welcome. Naren, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I accidentally put my hand up.
Oh, it's okay. I wasn't sure if you still had a question. Okay, let's see. Anybody else got questions? Hopefully this is helpful. And that everybody's getting their questions answered. Just some quick things that I'm getting a lot of emails about. Some students are asking about transcripts to be sent. I can send transcripts, but you do need to request them on the green clipboard in the counseling office. And every couple of days I send off a batch. So if you're wondering whether or not yours was sent, you can come to the counseling office and see the yellow highlight. And if it's highlighted and it has a little date next to it as to when I sent it, that's just for you. You can come back in and look at the clipboard and see if it was sent. So that's always helpful. Again, dual enrollment contracts do not need to be signed by the counselor. Just do the parent signatures and the student signatures for the appropriate pages. Upload all of it in a PDF in one file to Naviance, to the step 2, which is the Fulton County contract, and then your counselor can review your contract. I'm the dual enrollment coordinator, but I cannot manage this many dual enrollment contracts and so forth. So please make sure that you, that you're reaching out to your specific counselor, especially because your counselor is going to know your graduation plan and whether or not you need certain classes to graduate and kind of what you have to have. That's not something I'm going to know. Let me think what else. One big thing, I need students to be checking their Naviance email. I have no idea if my emails go to their Outlook or not, but when I send a mass email, it definitely goes to every parent's email, personal parent's email, but then it also goes to every student and it lands in their Naviance email. So if a student goes into their Naviance account, at the very top right, there's a little envelope icon, and that is where they need to be checking their emails, because I do updates. If I get information from a college, I'm going to forward it out. So it just makes it easier to send things out. Okay, Dorian Shoemate, you've got a question.
Hi, so I applied for this semester and got accepted, and I didn't start this semester. I was wondering if I needed to reapply.
You have to reapply. Are you talking about for Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech?
Georgia State.
Georgia State, that's interesting because they have a reactivation, like a reactivation application. I've heard mixed responses from the admissions office. Some of them say you have to do a full reapply, and other ones have told me, other admissions officers have told me there's just a form you can fill out to reinstate your application. You may need to reach out to admissions just to see what would be the best course of action. Also for current dual enrollment students, if a current student was taking a class, I put in the presentation that the video recording that I did, what specific things current GSU students needed to do. Now, Dorian, because you didn't actually take a class this semester, even though you applied, you're not considered a current student. So that's why I think you're probably going to have to reapply, but I'm not positive on that. So that would be a great admissions question.
Can I pick on that real quick?
Yeah.
Only because I've seen the student side of helping a student try to figure out the whole application piece.
Yeah.
So the link that you click on to do the application for Georgia State, it sends all students to one page, and it takes them through a series of questions asking them, have you previously applied? Have you previously attended? Have you previously taken classes? That kind of stuff. So once you answer those questions, then it routes them to either a reactivation application or a new application.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yes, it does do that. Thank you, Ms. Blunt.
You're welcome.
The other thing I was going to say too is in the last couple emails I've sent out to all parents and students, the admissions office at Georgia State is hosting some very specific help sessions for dual enrollment students. You do have to register for those sessions, but if you have questions about their admissions process, what to submit, how to submit, who to talk to, all that stuff, I would strongly urge the student to sign up for one of those sessions. There were 3 in the email that I sent out that you could have signed up for.
Ms. Chilson, regarding that, I tried to click on those links and none of those links are working.
Okay, somebody also emailed me about that, but then I clicked on them and they all worked.
Yeah,
So and then that same parent emailed me back and said, yep, they're working now. So I would try again.
Okay.
Okay. Because that was just yesterday. I think that parent emailed me and I tried them, they worked. And then she said, oh yeah, they're working now. So try it again.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I tried all 3 of them. They worked for me. And those were sent directly from Georgia State, so it's really not anything I have control over. But I would say if they're still not working for you, to reach out to the admissions office at Georgia State and see if they can help you directly. Okay, any last minute questions? Ms. Blunt, go back to the first screen because, you know, I'm a slacker and I forgot to record the first, like, I think 2 questions. So I'm going to go over those answers again. We've also had some people join us. So the first question, I think Mr. Jacobs asked this about how often do students need to submit an application to the college? And they submit an application to the college 1 time for the school year. And then if the student ends up taking a class, then they don't have to reapply. And I tried to explain that in the PowerPoint, that if you're a current Georgia State student or a current Gwinnett Tech student, you do have to reapply. Or excuse me, you do not have to reapply from year to year. However, Georgia Tech is an exception. If we have anybody that's trying to apply to the Georgia Tech math program, you do have to reapply for that program every year. They do a new application that's available May 15th every year. So that's something. And then how often do students need to submit documents or items? The Fulton County dual enrollment contract, which is step 2, every student has to do one of those every year. Even if you are a current dual enrollment student, you still have to do a new contract every year. Your application to the college, it will depend on whether or not you've ever applied. The dual enrollment funding, the Georgia Futures application, that is done once a year. And the Google form that your counselor requires is due every semester. And then the last steps of the task items in Naviance are step 5, which is your summer registration. Step 6 is fall registration, and step 7 is spring registration. If you actually register for a class for a certain semester, you have to upload your actual college registration schedule It's usually called a student detail schedule. So once you do get registered, once your student gets registered, they have to upload a copy so that we can see that, and that just helps us with scheduling purposes on our end. Like we can't put in a spring class now because the registration for spring doesn't even happen until like November. So there's no way to do any kind of, you kind of guesstimate what you think you might want to take, but you don't actually register until November for spring. Okay, so that was the answer to the first question. And then the other one was, when applying to a specific college, I know there's a chance that you might not get in. So if I apply to more than one college for dual enrollment, do I need to tell you about both colleges? You can put all of that information on the Fulton County contract. You can also go ahead and do funding applications for more than one college. You also can do the Google Forms for funding for more than one college, so that your counselor can go ahead and approve funding for Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State and Georgia Tech, you know, or whatever. So all of that is available to you to go ahead and do. Okay, those were the main questions. And Ms. Blunt, are you meaning to share your screen with all your files?
Definitely not. Hi, welcome to the life of a high school counselor.
Yeah, and that's just a small portion of all the spreadsheets we have. We have a lot of spreadsheets.
Oh yeah, we do.
Okay, I'm happy to answer any last minute questions, and we're going to wrap up at 5:30. Does anybody have any last minute questions? We're going to do another one of these help sessions at the end of March, probably a week before the deadline. I like doing these because I think it's a good way for people to hear multiple questions, and anybody that didn't come, it's recorded. They can go back and listen to it. And then also the one in March, hopefully by then you're really in the thick of the paperwork and trying to figure all this stuff out. And if you have more questions at that point, which you likely will, we're available at that point to you know, hopefully answer more questions. Ms. Blunt, were there certain things that I didn't cover or you would like to add? Because you're an expert as well. Have you been getting any questions that you think are important to mention?
I'm trying to think. I had one family ask me earlier about, does it matter with classes that are not in the same subject area as far as the sequence? Like their student was planning on doing U.S. history one semester next year and then econ one semester next year. And I was, you know, at the college level, it doesn't matter which order you do it in. For many things, there are some courses that have prerequisites. So that leads me into a different topic, which I like. So there are some courses at the college level that do have prerequisites, which means you have to have whatever the prerequisite is listed as in their scheduling system. That college class has to be listed on your college transcript ahead of time.
Yeah.
So a common thing that students have asked me is, well, I've done high school pre-calc, why can't I do college calculus?
Right.
Well, the college requires you to have college pre-calculus, which is not the same as high school pre-calculus, on your college transcript. So I mean, this is a little bit early to be talking about, you know, registration errors, but once students are admitted and then they're registering for classes, if you come upon, you know, if you get a pop-up that says there's a registration error, you'll need to look at that specific class that you're trying to register for to see if there are prerequisites, if there's a common one that I've seen is certain student attributes. So you as a dual enrollment student, you're just considered just a regular college student. At the college level, though, there are going to be certain types of students. So maybe students that are at Perimeter College, but they are maybe in like learning support classes. They might have there's going to be certain learning support classes that are not available to dual enrollment students. Traditional college students at Perimeter, not high school students, could be in a Perimeter learning community. There's going to be classes that are restricted to them. So, you know, if you're registering for a section of English 1101 and you get an error message, you know, there's a couple things that you'll need to look at in the description of the class to see, okay, maybe I just need to choose a different section of it.
Okay, and then the other thing I
It's a
saw
whole bunch of
somebody-
words. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, this was good. The other thing I was going to say is that I have a lot of students that want to take a science at the college. There's a couple of things about sciences that are real specific, not only about the prerequisites, but also when you sign up for a science at the college, you actually have to sign up for the science class and a lab to go with it, a lab class to go with it. That is not easy to schedule. So please know that the sciences are a little bit trickier. They're also very difficult to do at the college. I know that students are like, oh, I did fine in this class at the high school, and I get it. But when you're talking about, doing really well in a science class at the college, you really have to have that all-in attitude. And you also have to be able to have the space in your schedule to do 2 classes and meet the prerequisite. And if it doesn't go well, that is on your transcript forever. And it can affect not only your high school GPA, but when you try to transfer those credits somewhere else, that grade is going to go with you. So I strongly suggest not doing a science at the college. I mean, I can tell a student that all day long. They don't listen to me, and they're still going to sign up for it at the end of the day. And I don't recommend it. I don't think it's a good idea to do. I just clicked on the chat, or not the chat, the link that was sent from Georgia State. I just tried it again, and it's pulling up for me right now. So please try the links again. They all work for me. And I'm clicking on the one I sent out in the email. So I'm just like pulling up an old email and I'm clicking on it and they're working. So please try to see if you can get registered for one of those help sessions if you do need it. Okay, so those are the highlights for tonight. And then I just strongly encourage you to get started on the paperwork and get documents sent off and go ahead and try to get your testing done. Go ahead and fill out that Fulton County contract and get that uploaded. That for me, the contract is the big kicker. I have to have that by the 31st or you cannot do dual enrollment. So March 31st for the contract and submitting an application, and then everything else can kind of come a little bit later if needed. But those are the things I have to have. And Ms. Blunt, did you have any last things that you wanted to add?
Students who are taking a future SAT or ACT, please, 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 for your own sake, go ahead and enter your college code when you take the test or in your account on College Board or the ACT website ahead of time. It will definitely reduce the timeline that it takes for the scores to be sent to your college if you have that college code listed ahead of time rather than waiting for your scores to be released online, then requesting them to be sent to the college and then waiting for it to be sent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
And then somebody asked, I think it was Virginia Kahn, where to find the dual enrollment contract. It is in your Naviance account. It's in step 2. It's an attachment. You need to download it, fill it out, get the signature, scan it, and then re-upload it as a document. And then that will mark that step complete.
There are a couple of questions that came through the chat that I'm just now seeing.
Yeah.
PSAT scores are allowed for application acceptance at Gwinnett Tech. Yes, that is correct. This student or this
hold on, about PSAT scores, only
yes.
The 10th grade year will be counted. If you took it 9th grade year, they don't count those.
Yes.
Go ahead. What were you about to say?
He just mentioned that his daughter got her response from Gwinnett Tech in about 2 weeks.
They're very fast.
Yes, they are. Another person asked, do you need an ID number for Georgia Futures? You do not. Students can set up their account just with their name, their address, their social security number if they have one. No ID number is needed. I think there is a section where if a student knows it, they can enter their GTID, but that is not necessary for anything. The GTID is a 10-digit number that I can't think of a single time that students or parents actually use it in high school. It's a state ID that's used for tracking test scores. So if a student is in Fulton County and then Gwinnett and then moves, that kind of stuff. But that piece is not needed to create the account.
Okay, and then I am putting these links to Georgia State's help sessions in the chat because they're working for me. So I'm just copying them over. And so I don't know why they're not working on certain end, but they worked fine for me. So I'm sorry.
Maybe try a different
three
browser.
links. Yeah, maybe a different browser. I'm using Chrome, so Google Chrome. But yeah, that could be it, definitely. So the first one is actually tonight, February 23rd at 6:30. So you could hop off this, and I have no idea if you have to actually get a registration. Looks like a confirmation is sent to the email address when you register. And then the next one is on March 1st at 6:30 at night. And then the last one that they're doing is Wednesday, March 9th at 6:30 at night. So they're doing these 3 virtual help sessions. This is specific to Georgia State admissions. So please get with them if you need anything. And I've copied all the links into the chat. Okay, so we're going to sign off. I hope y'all had a good session. If you have more questions, just let us know. We will certainly have another chat available. I think it's March 22nd or something like that. Yes. Mahina, did you have another question?
Could you quickly confirm the minimum PSAT score for Gwinnett Tech, please?
No, I cannot. You need to go to the Gwinnett Tech website and see what they require because the schools, all of them have different standards and I can't keep up with it. So you just have to go directly to their site.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And also if for some reason a change happens at the college, then it's going to be reflected on their website and we might not know that offhand.
Yeah. I mean, that happened one year to us where they changed all the information and I was like, oops, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay. Alexander, so?
Oh, hi. I missed the beginning of the meeting. And do you know where exactly I have to go to sign up for Georgia Tech Math?
Yeah, so May 15th is when it opens. You do have to do all of the Naviance steps that are required. So please make sure those are due by March 31st, but their application doesn't open until May 15th. I would also say that all of the links are in the step 3 of Naviance under apply to the college. I put the direct website to Georgia Tech on that task. So please check your Naviance and get all the application stuff, like the Fulton County contract, the funding app, like all of those things still have to be done sooner rather than later. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're signing off. We did record it. I'll get it posted tomorrow, and then hopefully we can answer more questions later. I appreciate all of y'all for staying on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.